Oh my gosh. James, that is wild. I'm really glad to hear that she's well. Yeah, that's like miraculous. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I know this season's been this holiday season has been going crazy, but that's really wild. I've yet to visit you all at Bethany Haven, but I'll be sure to come by soon um, and see you all. Jeez. Good to know, Riley. A couple more are still rolling in. There was a lockdown in Lexington.
Here in the office.
Okay, gotcha.
Everything's cool.
Okay, good to know. Eddie just joined the chat, and it is Eddie Fowler's birthday week. He's the American member at the farmers market. Yeah, glad you're okay, Riley. One thing I just wanted to say, while I started, just a general timesheet reminder to submit those if you haven't yet. If there are a lot of hours that you serve that aren't being calculated into the total because you have some pending timesheets, I try to wait. I have to see Riley. I try to check timesheets at least like once a week. OMG! That's incredible. Amazing. Love it. Okay, back to business. I try to update timesheet or approve timesheets at least once a week. Um, so if you're waiting on your supervisor to approve some because they have to approve it before I do, it's okay to remind them. Or if you would like me to remind them, I also try to send them reminders every once in a while. But yeah, if you have any questions about timesheets, please let me know. And as a general reminder about timesheets, the hourly expectation is 37 and a half hours in order to ensure that you can take your PTO and
Yep.
sick days and
Yep.
that you complete the program on time.
Turn your computer on. Evidently, they started at 2.
Lisa, could you mute yourself, babe?
I'm sorry.
You're okay. No worries. It happens.
How do I mute it?
I might be able to. Let's see. Yeah, you're good. You got it. No worries. Let's see. I'm going to try to roll through this, but I'm going to give general updates about the program, some events we have coming up next, a few development opportunities, and spend the rest of the hour talking about some self-care, maybe diving a little deeper into topics we talked about at orientation. Some people here weren't able to be at orientation, so some of it might sound familiar, but it's always a good reminder. And I'm happy to have like a discussion here about real self-care as we head into this time. Okay. So next month, January, both towards the end of the month, end of January is going to be the MLK Junior Day of Service on MLK Day. So that is a day of service for AmeriCorps members. So unless you're near Frankfurt, you'll be planning your own MLK Junior Day project. If you are in the area, I'll be sending you um, an invitation to the project that we'll be doing. We'll just be putting together care bags. Um, but last year, our MLK project got snowed out, even though a lot were planning on coming. So that's why I'm deciding to do it this way this year. So I'm not worried about anybody traveling if the weather's bad that day. But yeah, returning members or members that have done a project nearby, feel free to share ideas of service projects that you've done. We're going to be putting together care bags with just like um, basics, sanitary items, like the hand warmers, some snacks, things like that. And those will be used in Franklin County and surrounding counties for our K count. So if you're not familiar with K count, that is basically an annual census of homeless people in the state of Kentucky. So every county has a different body that performs this K count. But I'll be sharing information if you. Oh yeah, totally, Ashley. I'm happy to edit and update and make it the most beautiful pet collage. I honestly want to like print it out and laminate it. Maybe I will. But anyways, uh, I'll be sharing information for whatever K Count event is going on near you. Um, HHCK is having the one in Frankfurt. James, to answer your question, how many hours a week are I supposed to be logging? It is 37 and a half per week on average. Um, yeah. Okay, teacher. I'll add that picture of Enzo. Enzo is a cutie. Definitely crush in the collage. But yeah, feel free to drop in the chat any questions about K count, but I'll be in touch with more information. Yeah, and that is at the end of January. So just start thinking about these. And if you want to brainstorm MLK Day projects, I'm happy to do that with you. I like chatting and catching up and just hearing about projects y'all have going on. Lola, to answer your question about timesheets, I can't approve timesheets until they're approved by your supervisor. So it's totally okay to give like a little nudge. Say, hey, would you mind approving these so that the hours count towards my average? But also like don't freak out if there are some hours that are not approved. Like you can reach out to me and we can do the math to calculate what your actual weekly average is. Because usually after those hours are approved, it increases it by quite a bit. So yeah, if you have any concerns about hours or timesheets, feel free to reach out. If I have any concerns, I'll reach out. So if I haven't, then that's fine. But yeah. These are upcoming holidays. Yay, happy holidays. We have off on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. If there's some kind of different schedule going on at your site, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about ways that we can get around that to make sure you're still on track for hours. General monthly reporting reminder for performance measures. I mean, I've talked about this with pretty much everybody at our site visits. So if you have any questions about these, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay. Development opportunities coming up. Only one of these is a virtual webinar so far that I found coming up. If you find anything else that you think would be beneficial for the group, feel free to share. But this invisible disabilities and protections under Title IX is sponsored by AmeriCorps. So that'll be with all AmeriCorps programs nationally. Welcome to join that and just to learn about. Okay, cool. To learn about, as it says, the intersections of disability rights and anti-discrimination laws, which is helpful when dealing with not just fair housing, but just making sure that we can serve clients with disabilities better. And then here I'll be sharing this link. This is the Opioid Response Network. They have a ton of webinars going on almost every day. And so I'm just going to share that and you can peruse through, see what events they have coming up for the next month. And if you find any that you think are applicable to the clients that you serve or would help you serve them better, feel free to let me know and review it. And you can log those as AmeriCorps training. See, all of them are really informative. And sponsored and done by health organizations. Oh, awesome. Yeah, Whitney, that's a great idea. I love that so much. I don't know if Michael has shown you the pictures from their MLK project last year. when he was Michael Dr. Yeah, Dr. No, Michael dressed up and Derek was Sing One. It is the funniest picture. Anyways, moving on. At the bottom, the last resource here is a recording. I forget what organization it's from, but it's about understanding housing as a social driver of health for rural residents. So I thought that would be very interesting for members serving in rural areas or that care about advocating for rural areas, just to learn about, yeah, how housing affects health. I say it all the time that housing support is life support. And so I think I would like to watch that review. And yeah, I think it would bring a lot of value. This last line, which kind of segues into the next presentation, it's about seasonal affective disorder. This isn't, exclusively something that people struggle with during the holidays, but I just wanted to, I just wanted to share this. If any of these seem familiar to you or resonate with you, any of these signs, these could be symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. It's when some people experience a significant mood change when the seasons change. Like I said, it's not exclusive to the holidays or winter. The holidays are just hard. Winter's hard. I think it's just a time of grieving. Everything's like dying outside. But I've known people that experience it in the summertime too. So just putting this out there. But I want to quickly, before I even go into the self-care, I want to cover this first. I think it's the most important. I shared this resource before. I don't remember when it was. Maybe at orientation, the Member Assistance Program overview. So the Member Assistance Program is a free 24/7 counseling resource for Homes for All AmeriCorps members. You have 3 face-to-face counseling sessions by request. Participation's voluntary and confidential. I have no idea who uses it or what's discussed unless you wanted to share. And that's obviously confidential. So everybody you speak to is a licensed master's level counselor. It's very accessible 24/7, right? And it covers a lot of different issues. From what I've heard from members that have used it is you just like type what specific issues that you're having, and then you'll be referred to whoever can help and provide those services. So it's includes but not limited to family conflict, depression, seasonal affective disorder, couples, relationships, substance abuse, grief, anxiety, work-life balance, parenting, stress, as well as finances, things like that. So you can get access to life coaching, legal assistance, bankruptcy, divorce, custody, adoption, elder care, legal assistance, financial assistance. I'm scrolling through this fast because we've already reviewed it, but yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of all of the services available. I don't know if anybody has tried to use these personal assistant services, but I would be interested to hear about how that works. And then work-life resources, trying to map out resources near you to offer customized guidance. Medical advocacy, if you're having issues with insurance, care transition, doctor referrals, appointments, things like that, they are able to connect you with medical advocates. And I'll be sharing all of these presentations, but this is how you access benefits. It's www.mylifeexpert.com. The password's AmeriCorps. You can use, like, say that you're associated with either Homes for All or the Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky. Yeah, you'll be able to access counseling 24/7. If you just need somebody to talk to process the crazy stuff that's happening, um, feel free. That's there. So yeah, that's that. Sorry, one last look. All right. So returning members may remember this presentation from last year. Oh, I tried to change it up a little bit. What the? Sorry. Before we start this, I'm gonna move into the room. My connection seems slow in here. Okay. So for the rest of our time together, I'm gonna discuss real self-care, but like I said, feel free to make this more of a discussion. Share what you're going through currently, share what's helped maybe in the past with self-care during the holidays. I last year read this book by Pooja Lakshmi called Real Self-Care. I really enjoyed it. I thought it brought a lot of interesting perspectives on self-care, how we think about self-care and how to implement it into our lives. I think it's important all the time, but especially during the holidays, to check in. So this is the agenda. And yeah, I'll be going through this probably in the next like 30 minutes or so. Feel free to drop any questions. If there are any resources that you would like related to what I discussed, feel free to reach out. I have access to like a PDF of the book that I'm happy to share if you'd like to go deeper into any of these topics. But yeah, we're going to talk about a little history of self-care, the difference between faux self-care and real self-care. I think it's been a hot button word for the past couple years. But I always think it's important to ask ourselves, like, what does this really mean if I'm putting it in my life? We're going to discuss getting aligned with your values, practicing self-compassion, setting boundaries, signs of when to seek professional help, and some strategies. And I say some strategies, like really just a few, but I can share a lot more in like a self-care email later. So self-care actually started in the 1950s, that term. It was to empower institutionalized patients through diet and exercise. So about giving them agency in order to take care of themselves. By the 1960s, medical professionals embraced self-care in response to compassion fatigue, which is similarly to how we think of it now or talk about it and what we do in our service. Interestingly, in the 1970s, the concept transitioned to more activist circles, championed by the Black Panther Party. And so, like Audre Lorde and Angela Davis, I have this quote here. They're talking about how if you want to change the world, if you really want to help other people, you have to take care of yourself first. And lastly, I want to emphasize here, I can make this cuter, sorry. That real self-care is also community care. And when we take care of ourselves, that increases our capacity to take care of others around us, right? Okay, so what is faux self-care? Faux self-care is something that is externally prescribed, something that we can like hold or get. It's often tangible. What it does in the end, it maintains the status quo without addressing broader issues. So examples include, paying for, chic yoga classes, excessive 12-step skincare routines, buying bath bombs. These can lead to feelings of disconnection and guilt, while in contrast, real self-care stems from internal decisions. It's a verb, it's something that you do, and it's about meeting your needs, and fostering change, ultimately bringing you closer to your more authentic self, your values, and what you really care about and who you want to be. The reason why we turn to faux self-care, and everybody's different in which resonates with them the most, it is for escape, achievement, or optimization. So this example I found interesting for escape. If you feel like a completely different person when you're on a vacation, you may be using faux self-care through escape. And the thing with that is you'll come back from that vacation and won't feel much better. You might still feel pretty burnt out and still struggling a bit because you're using it to just escape. But the problem is still there when you come back from the escape. Secondly, achievement. So if you often compare yourselves to others or feel like you always have a mental measuring stick in the back of your mind, you might have an unhealthy relationship with achievement. And I think we'll talk about later, self-compassion helps a lot with that. But yeah, anyways, lastly, optimization. If you equate your self-worth with productivity or always looking for the newest time-saving life hack, you may be using faux self-care to avoid your true needs and focus on optimizing and making everything efficient, and if everything just worked perfectly, like everything would be perfect, that's turning to optimization through faux self-care. Again, real self-care, it's not a noun, it's not something you can get, but it's a verb, it's something that you have to do. So wellness on its own, yoga, baths, whatnot, it can provide temporary relief, but it can't change us internally until we do the work of real self-care first. A note on social media influencers. I just wanted to say and emphasize, I think it's important that it's very easy to compare ourselves to social media influencers. And yeah, it seems like everybody else has it together and has a lot going on. But it's important to not get fixated on that. That's sort of leaning into the unhealthy achievement ideas. Because nobody's life is as perfect as it's presented on a highlight reel that is shared with everybody. So just keep that in mind, as everybody's sharing their perfect Christmas holidays this season. And just a question to ask yourself, like, what are some faux self-care activities you've tried? What was your motivation? Like therapy, shopping, or whatever. And ask yourself how you felt afterwards. Sippy break. Okay. Any questions about real self-care so far? Happy to chat and discuss this a bit at orientation, but I want to bring it up again. There's a difference between shame and guilt. So shame is the belief that there is something inherently wrong with us. We are just a bad person, like at our core. Whereas guilt is feeling like you did something wrong. And you can atone for that, right? If you feel guilty. Shame, not so much. So Pooja, the author of Real Self-Care, talks about how we need to come from good enough, the stance of good enough, that what we are doing is good enough, and acknowledge to ourselves, affirm ourselves that we're okay with making mistakes, We don't have to listen to the cruel voice in our head that is downplaying our achievements. This one's big. I know a lot of y'all are very selfless in what you do. That's why you're serving. That's why you care so much about the people that you serve. But remember that you're not defined by being selfish or selfless. You're allowed to consider yourself along with those that you care about when making decisions. Aw, thank you all. Sorry, I just read the comment from Michael and Ashley. Um, yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I want you all to know that I care far more about your well-being and your self-actualization to your goals in this program year um, than I am about numbers and data. Lastly, I can extend the compassion I give to others to myself. And that core belief, believing that you come from good enough and believing that we all deserve compassion and to make mistakes and move on. So this tip here, it might be helpful if you frequently talk down to yourself or feel shameful. You can like out loud say ouch or stop. Um, and that can be a way to get yourself to stop and perhaps recognize that you need some kind of distraction, need to move on. So this researcher, Dr. Neff, they research self-compassion, and they say it's a skill. It's a skill that is divided into 3 components. So the first is replacing self-judgment with self-kindness. 2 is recognizing your shared humanity, right? Everybody deserves compassion. Yeah. And 3, being curious about negative thoughts instead of believing them as the immediate truth. So that last one is the really interesting one, and I'll talk about it for a little bit. It's about like psychological flexibility, cognitive flexibility, how to train your brain to basically be more resilient and more understanding of your emotions um, and your decisions. What have we got on the chat? Yeah. Yeah, it can be really easy when you all are giving so much of yourselves. And I know because we're in a housing crisis, it often doesn't feel like enough. But know that it is significant. Oh, thanks, Ashley. Don't make me cry, you guys. Moving on. These are some other tips. Again, I slimmed down this presentation by quite a lot, but I think I may have recorded the full one where it was like an hour and a half. Anyways, happy to share that link. But these are some notes, or sort of self-compassion checklist. So we must believe, we must understand that compassion is something that we have to give ourselves. We must give it to ourselves. Nobody else can give it to us like we can give it to ourselves. That's what matters the most. That second note, making sure to check your inner critic, check that voice in your head. I've heard a tip to like visualize your inner critic as like some villainous or annoying like pop culture character, allowing you to kind of take a step away from that inner critic, observe it, ask, where it's coming from, and also sort of laugh about it, not take it so seriously. This middle one, remember that perfectionism is an illusion. It leads to loneliness, demoralization, and disconnection. none of us can be perfect all the time. We have to um, hold on to our dignity and understand we're going to make mistakes and we can fix it and move on. Or we'll do our best to do so, and that's good enough. You do not have to be at rock bottom to accept or ask for help. I find that those that give the most of themselves have the hardest time asking for help. That is also, going into self-compassion, being a skill and being like a muscle that you have to exercise. The same goes for asking for help and recognizing when we need help. It's a skill. We have to practice it. And that means, acting, physically reaching out. It's a verb. Understand, or you have to start, questioning your anger, being curious about it, trying to understand it. What is triggering me? Why are these emotions coming up? That allows you to get closer to self-compassion. Oh, I feel this way because I went through this like really traumatic thing. I need to have some, compassion for myself and maybe chill out or find some way to cope with this. And lastly, allow yourself rest. I know you all are very busy. Um, but yeah, be sure to rest. We'll talk a bit about boundaries in a bit. I think that's important. And not just boundaries with others, but boundaries with ourselves too, right? I'm not going to stay up to like 1 a.m. That's allowing yourself rest and setting that boundary with yourself. Okay. A note on embodiment. I don't think I talked about this at orientation, or if I did, not very much. But the next time you feel yourself overwhelmed, overworked, or just feeling fried, take a minute to try to do embodiment, which just means like feeling your body. If any of you all have tried meditation, that's basically what it is. It is, listening to what's happening in your body, what you're feeling, being curious about it. So yeah, some of these questions are, what is my body trying to tell me right now? Am I hungry? Do I need to go for a short walk? Like, am I feeling like anxious and I need to go for a walk outside? Am I thirsty? Do I have to go to the bathroom? Am I just feeling like fidgety? Like, do I just need something to fidget with? Do I just need to like look away from the screen for like 5 minutes? Um, those are all great questions to ask yourself when you're trying to embody yourself. You can ask, what's one small thing I can do to take care of my body right now? This might be as minuscule as allowing yourself to use the bathroom when you have the urge versus holding it for several hours. Um, or my mom, I remember, told me this story. Um, she's she's selfless to a fault. And she was telling me how, like, one night she was putting lotion on her feet and realized that she couldn't remember the last time that she did that. Um, and yeah, it just felt very like overcome with sadness and emotion that she had neglected herself in that way. So don't neglect yourself. Take care of yourself. Um, Even if it's minuscule, it matters. Um, yeah. And then you can also ask yourself, what are the areas in my life where I can practice the skills of setting boundaries and softening my inner critic? Um, I think that's a really important note that we do have to reflect and consider, how can I put this into my life? How can I act? What are ways I can start building this muscle that don't feel as scary, and are maybe more forgiving? Yeah, rest is super important. Listening to our body is very important. Um, so I mentioned anger a little bit ago. Um, in moments when you're feeling angry, feeling triggered for whatever reason, that's the best time to take a pause. Your power is in the pause, and check in with your body. Um, so I wanted to define what a trigger is because it's not necessarily getting angry. And we talked about this a little bit at orientation, but when clients come in and, you have no idea, what they just came from, what they're dealing with, they might be throwing a lot at you. They are like very triggered in that instance. Um, and you might be able to understand that, but they might say something or do something that does really trigger you. Um, and builds up emotions. So it could be anything, including memories, experiences, events that spark any intense emotional reaction. So it's important to pause there and to be curious about that anger because, like I said, being curious about where it came from, why it's there, its purpose for you is valuable. So you can have compassion for yourself. And have more understanding behind that anger. And this note at the bottom, it might be difficult to visualize. Maybe I'm wrong, but Pooja mentions practicing gratitude not just as counting blessings, listing everything you're gracious for, but as a form of digestion. So really, visualizing digesting everything that you have achieved for clients despite a housing crisis. Um, really digesting that, processing that, um, that helps us in internalizing those achievements and not looking, um, you know, for that feeling elsewhere. I'll run through this list quickly. But I think this is really valuable to review when I send out the presentation. These are signs of when to see a mental health professional. And this could be helpful for you, your family, a client. But if you are observing in yourself or others these behaviors, it's important to check in with a mental health professional if you are feeling any of these. You can talk to me. You can talk to a MAP counselor. Those resources alone, I know can point you in the right direction to get the help that you need. So, some of the signs include persistent low mood, backlash, suicidal thoughts and impaired functioning, work impairment, constant unease and panic attacks, difficulty setting boundaries and control issues, relationship challenges, reassurance seeking and approval. And this last one is like difficulty discerning enjoyable activities and activities that you don't like. So not finding activities that you liked as enjoyable anymore. More on the next. Okay. So yeah, any of these signs, and it's not saying that like you're a goner if you're experiencing any of these. It's just a sign to reach out for help. Maybe talk to somebody about it and get another perspective. Yeah, gotta help yourself before you can help others, right? This slide is about martyr mode. I did talk about this at orientation, but especially when we're doing selfless service, supposedly selfless service, that's we work in nonprofits. It can be very easy to get stuck in this martyr mode. And that's essentially when we see ourselves as a martyr, when you feel like you're just being like stepped on by everybody else, and so you then like lash out at everybody else. But martyr mode is different in that everybody's not stepping on you. You're sort of volunteering yourself to be used in that way, or doing things, giving aspects of yourself that either that weren't asked for necessarily. So I think this is important to acknowledge with boundaries and having these boundaries with ourselves and saying, nobody asked me to do that. I don't have to do that. Because if I do that, am I going to feel resentful towards that person because I did something for them when they didn't ask? That's not fair. So these questions are important to ask yourself because martyr mode, I think, also goes hand in hand with that asking for help. Do you need to do it, or do you need to ask for help? So ask yourself, in what situations is it relatively easy for you to speak kindly to yourself? Are there people, places, or things that consistently make it difficult to treat yourself with compassion, or situations in which your self-criticism is extraordinarily loud? Are there common factors in these situations? If you find yourself in martyr mode, reflect on what gifts, in terms of attention, help, or energy, you are expecting to get paid back with, even if those expectations are beneath the surface. Oh. You can name a situation in which you were surprised or caught off guard by the kindness or generosity that you gave to yourself. Reflect on the circumstances that allowed for your self-compassion, and how can you flex that muscle more. This is a list. I think it's really important, crucial, in fact, to review a list of values even longer than this, and ask which resonate with us the most. Values can change all the time, with our goals or otherwise, or it's sort of a conversation, our values and our goals that they're having, working together to get us to where we want to be and where we're meant to be. So yeah, you can ask yourself if there's, one, two, or three values that really resonate with you. And yeah, this could be something that has always resonated with you since you were a child. I've always been very justice oriented. Or it could be, something new, like meaningful work if you just started serving at your site, and learning. At least I learned, in my time with AmeriCorps, I needed meaningful work. I needed to do something that was meaningful for other people, or like I I won't be happy. And that's just because that's my value. I value meaningful work very much. Yeah. Oop. If you're sort of like, what are my values? Like, I have no idea where to even start. And like really be critical about your values. Um, and I don't know, you hear in the South a lot like, I value, my family and love and faith, and those are all like not downplaying those values whatsoever, but really ask yourself, like, what does your soul care about? And it could be those things and more. So yeah, just be curious, be critical. Ask yourself, when you're happiest, what are you doing? What values are you leaning into when you're doing those things? When do you feel the most like yourself? When do you feel like you're bound to fail? I am bound to fail when I'm not doing meaningful work because I know it's not for me. It's not built for me. I know that I cannot do blank and be blank. So these are just things to consider if we're not sure about our values. Something too I'll say is you can ask somebody else in your life. I think that is really important when you're critically thinking about values, because you're asking somebody else who sees your actions, you know, what do you think I value? What do you think I care about? If it doesn't align with what you think are your values, then I think that, question that. Um, and I'll say it again, our values are always shifting, seesawing, moving. It's not a contradiction, it's human nature. It's helpful to remember that in each season of your life, as you learn and grow more, you will have different priorities. This doesn't discount any values that you've had for life versus just now. It's a sign of change and growth. So yeah, as I said, the difference between values and goals. Values change. Um, Goals might change with those. So it's sort of a conversation. Okay, this is the important one. Setting boundaries. So real self-care requires boundaries, which basically means balancing your needs with everybody else's, right? So I said your powers and your pause earlier, but what that really means is your boundaries and your pause. It is perfectly okay to say, if somebody asks you to do something, asks you a question, you can say, let me get back to you on that. Tell them when. They can expect you'll follow up. But it's okay to take that pause and think and reflect on, well, what else do I have going on? Is this something that I value? Pause and consider the pros and cons for you personally. Secondly, be clear, be concise, and don't apologize. I underline these because I know this is probably the hardest for a lot of us. But again, it's like a muscle. You got to keep working it. And I find that at the end of the day, others appreciate this clearness and being concise. And the not apologizing aspect is more so for ourselves. Sometimes I get in the habit of like saying sorry all the time for like something that's, should I feel guilty about that? Like I did something wrong? Um, and I think I try to use language such as, like I appreciate your patience with me, things like that, instead of apologizing for running behind on something. Yeah. The point of a boundary is to communicate what you need. It is not to control the other person's response. I'm going to say that again. The point of a boundary is to communicate what you need, not to control the other person's response. So really ask yourself, what do I really need? This point, just because you feel guilt doesn't mean you're making the wrong choice. Sometimes it's the only choices you got. And yeah, we can go in and question that and be critical of where that guilt is coming from. This point, don't go to a hardware store for milk is interesting. But what it basically means is be careful about setting a boundary with somebody that won't give it to you. Just because you say, I'm setting a boundary, that doesn't make it the law. It's again about balancing your needs with everybody else's. It's about taking everybody's boundaries, values, and needs into consideration and figuring out the best way to move forward for everybody. Same with values. It's okay to change your mind about boundaries. Yeah, I know I was okay with that yesterday, but not today. And yeah, it's a muscle. Start small, build it up over time. Yeah. These are, I think, important because they're just a few good coping skills. What is crucial to real self-care is having hope. Hope that we will not be in a housing crisis forever, which I know probably feels that can be hard to believe right now. But in order to cultivate hope, we have to activate one or more of 4 different types of coping skills. So that includes problem solving. So jumping to a task or action that helps you move forward tangibly, leaning into that value that helps you feel closer to that goal of solving whatever problem. What is something that you can tangibly do, if at all? The second is emotional regulation. pausing, checking in with yourself, meditating, feeling your body, asking questions about how it's feeling. This reduces that stress level. Third, activating a core identity. So for many, if you love your family, spend time with your family, calling a family member you hadn't talked to in a while, connecting with an individual or a collective identity, or like a value, doing something with that value. How can you activate that and do something about that? And lastly is relational coping. I think this is crucial right now. It's connecting with mentors or other important people in your life. I always notice when I talk to the people that I love and love me back, it's kind of impossible to not feel better after talking to them. And I saw a quote the other day that said something like, it was two girls, hanging out together, and she was, one was sharing a lot of her difficulties, and at the end she was like, I'm so sorry for like putting all of this on you. And some people call it like trauma dumping. And the other friend responds, a shared success is a double success, whereas a shared sorrow is half a sorrow. And that relates to that relational coping. When we share our sorrows with one another, it lessens the weight of them in us. And when we share achievements and successes, we're able to take that time to digest those with others and feel gratitude for that opportunity. So to conclude about real self-care, nice, right on time. 4 components. First is boundary setting. Second is self-compassion. Third is getting clear on values. And the fourth, it's ultimately, the point of this is community change, making this a better world for the rest of humanity. But we got to start with ourselves first, right? Here's the suicide and crisis hotline. I will say, if any of you all, I have a few little magnets that have this number on them. If you'd like to post it somewhere in your office, let me know, and I can send some to you. Also, care bags are like the Homes for All holiday care bags are about to go out, so keep an eye on your mail for those. Let's see, stop share. Oh, back. Hi, friends. Okay, cool. Magnet. Awesome. Yeah, I might just be able to get a ton and just like send you all one in a card. Why not? Let me stop the recording. Anyways, any questions about anything we chatted about? If you missed the first thing, that's okay. I'll send out a recording.